Their friends, David Paulides, CanAm Missing Project. And this, you are watching the official channel of Huck TV. And yes, there is Huck in all of her majesty. He's a good girl. She had a big day today. Yeah, didn't you? You're a good girl. She knows that in the late afternoon, that's Dad and her time to go out on the trail, have some fun. So today, it got up to almost 80 degrees. First super nice day of the year. And when she's out there, she gets hot. And unfortunately, she wants to go anyhow. So about halfway through the hike, she'll start heating up and slowing down and slowing down and slowing down. And then it takes her about 2 hours to recuperate. That's what all the huffing and puffing is about. She's trying to cool down. But on Monday, she's going to get a big chop job. She's going to get her summer cut. She's going to be all happy and cool. Get rid of all that hot hair, huh? Yeah, I promise. I'm going to do it. I promise. Yes. So that's what's coming up for Huck. And today, we got a pretty interesting show for you. I can promise you that. It's three for the price of one. You watch this show and you're going to get 3 cases. And Huck says, Dad, that's really giving the audience a lot what they're asking for. And I said, yeah, we're going to give them to them today. And I know some people make comments when I wear tank tops. It's hot in here. What can I say? So, I'll do better next time. Somebody sent me in an email the other day. Every once in a while, somebody sends one in and it really touches my soul. It's from Nick. Good morning, team. This email is for Dave P. Please get it to him. Well, it got to me. I wanted to reach out, introduce myself, and say thank you. I'm a 44-year-old salesman, father, husband, and a student of life. I found you guys by luck. I think it was more fate. I came across Missing 411 The Hunted a few years ago and immediately wanted to be part of that community. I was in a dark place 2 years ago. I wasn't living my life with honor. And then my brother killed himself after he and I had a pretty tough fight and became physical, and I blamed myself. I continued on not really being good to my family. And then I found Dave, and I found myself wanting to watch and research Dave's info rather than do other things. Dave gave me a hobby, and I really became like a child again. I couldn't wait to get done with work and watch his videos. And over time, after a couple years of following your teachings and classes, I turned everything around, and I'm now killing it out there. I owe my recovery and success to you, Dave. I needed a hobby, a friend, someone to talk to me, somebody healthy for my mind. You gave me those things. You changed my life. Thank you, sir. I'm writing you not only to say thank you, but to make sure you are aware that there may be thousands of people just like me you have done the same for. I'm 100% certain there are. If you're ever in North Carolina, I would love to take you out for dinner, have a conversation. I just got my patches and eagle pin that I ordered from you. I love them. I wear them every day with honor and respect for the missing, lost, and their families. If you ever need anything, you can count on me. Wow. Wow. You know, in life, I've told you before, you gotta find your own way. And you're not gonna find that sitting in the basement, sitting in your room, watching YouTube, watching TVs, playing on the computer. It's never gonna happen. When Ben took his life, I don't know, I felt I was on this path. We were both working on missing people. But I also knew that mental health was coming into play in this world in a big way. And we didn't have enough mental health facilities. We don't have enough caretakers. And we don't have enough empathy and compassion in the world to really take care of the issue. And trust me, I'm like everybody else in this world. I have my down days. Really down. Sometimes I don't have anybody to talk to but Hawk. Maybe that's good. She doesn't talk back. In all seriousness, knowing that I helped just one person through this life is good. And I've heard from many of you that in one way or another, I've gotten through, made my point, and somehow it's helped a life or two. And wow, makes it very rewarding. I appreciate those letters, those comments, because sometimes you wonder. I wonder if I'm making a dent in the issue. I wonder if I'm helping anybody. But Nick's letter really did it. It brightened my day in a big way. Thank you. So, moving forward. Got a note the other day on one of the comments to a video. Hey, why are you doing all these dumb videos about other countries and other places? Ha ha ha, did you run out of cases in the United States? What an idiot. I don't use bad language very often, but that was an idiot comment. If people really knew, and if they read my books, they've noticed I've hardly used any cases out of my books when I make these videos. So I could do 1,500 cases, rattling them off just from my books. And if you don't understand that this is a worldwide issue, if you don't understand that, then you'll think of reasons of why it's just happening in the United States. But don't think that way. It's been a worldwide issue for hundreds of years. So it's just not a new technology spin done in the US and Canada. No. So comments like that, I know. All of you will say, hey Dave, don't even comment, I'm just wipe them out. The guy kind of bothered me. And I didn't get upset about it, but I did tell him, I gave him an explanation just like I gave you today. But then I told him to leave, because if you don't get it, if you really don't understand why we're doing what we're doing here, it's all educational. It's not entertainment. If it was entertainment, I'd have a real splashy screen and smooth graphics and blah-de-blah. I don't have that. I spend all my time researching cases, not trying to make a big splashy scene. And to that end, I think we ought to get to the cases. First incident, I'd never heard about it. I'd never heard about this guy either. His name was Mark Nichols. Now, some of you may have heard about him because he has a YouTube presence. He's 53 years old. He went missing May 27th of 2025. Just recent case. He was a modern day railroad hobo with a home. And he lived in Johnson City, Tennessee. He had a condo right next to a big lake there, Boone Lake. And his YouTube channel was called Hobo Shoestring. Videos are probably still up. He traveled by train and he talked about his escapades. He got up to 200,000 subscribers. Usually posted 2 or 3 times per month. Now, let me explain. That is a crime, to ride the rails. It's a big crime, not a little one. And when I'm going to tell you about his disabilities, you're going to wonder, well, how did he do that? I'm going to explain it. But March 27th at 1 a.m., Mark left his condo and went to the hospital. He was hallucinating. It's a picture of Mark. This is the missing person poster. So, he was hallucinating. Police said he had many medical conditions. He was missing a pinky and a ring finger. He had no teeth or dentures, and he was legally blind and hearing impaired. Well, Dave, if he's legally blind and hearing impaired, how does he ride the rails? Okay, legally blind doesn't mean you're blind. It means you fit this criteria for being legally blind. I mean, you could see a little. Obviously, he could get on and off the trains safely. So at 1 a.m. he goes to the hospital, March 27th. 4 a.m. he arrives back home, and he's caught on a neighbor's doorbell cam coming back. At 7 a.m. he's caught on that same doorbell cam in front of his room. They couldn't tell if he was going in or going out. Well, Mark had a really close friend who continuously kept in contact with him, and he hadn't heard from him for several days. Nobody had. So his sister and his mom are still alive, and they hadn't heard from him either. So the friend and the relatives report him as a missing person, and the police go to his condo. Hate going to these kind of calls. Every once in a while you open the door and there's somebody deceased inside. I hated that. Well, they went in, did a welfare check, and nothing was unusual in the condo. All of his drugs that he was taking were in the home. Major personal belongings were still there. Didn't see anything out of shape. Well, at about that time, the Johnson City Police decided they better search the grounds around the apartment, just in case. And they did, and they didn't find anything. So now they get together with search and rescue and talk to the relatives and talk to his friend and said, well, where else could he go? And the things that he would take with him on the railroad were all in the apartment. And if he went on a railroad trip, he would always tell his friend, and he hadn't talked to him. March 28th, the police decide to expand the search in the grounds around the condominium. Condominium was near a lake, Boone Lake. And on the next, after they didn't find anything on the 28th, the 29th, they decided to put boats in Boone Lake to search for a body. Now, Boone Lake is known as a swimming and boating place. It supports a big stock of bluegill, crappie, white and striped bass, smallmouth and largemouth. It's formed by the Watauga and the Holston rivers. It's about 4,400 acres in size and 16 miles long. And it shares being in Sullivan and Washington counties. The volume is 76,000 acre feet, and the surface elevation is about 1,375 feet. Johnson City is a pretty good sized city, and homes around the lake, pretty darn expensive. Well, the searches go on. There's a lot of people that fish that area, look around the area. Nobody's seen anything. Nobody's coming up with anything. Nobody's heard from them. So the state and the sheriffs decide to put out a silver alert. And in that silver alert, they said that Mark may have had a mental altered state, and they had great concern for him. They never extrapolated what that meant. But they also said that he may be hallucinating, which is why he went to the hospital originally. So, I want to say something now. A lot of people judge based on looks. So, 53 years old, long hair, beard, no teeth, no dentures. So what's going on? Well, some of you are going to say, well, he must be doing some drugs, whatever. Well, search goes on. He hasn't been making any YouTube shows. He just vanished. Johnson City Police continue searching the lake, not finding anything. April 4th, fisherman was near the Knob Creek dock. Let me show you what this is. It's the closest dock to the city of Johnson City. Right here. The lake is small down in this area. It gets bigger as you go north. Like I said, it's a big lake. Johnson City, decent sized town. Fisherman fishing at a spot closest to the city. Something I would never do. But he's fishing there and he sees something in the water that's unusual. He looks again and he thinks, I'm not sure, but I think that's a body. Calls the police. Police get there, they look at it, because it's floating out a ways. Looks like it could be a body. Police call for fire. Fire calls for the sheriff's office dive team. Dive team arrives, they recover the body. They're unsure who they found, and they didn't say anything. A couple days later, the coroner confirms they recovered Mark Nichols' body. Almost nothing released by the coroner to the public. Almost nothing. The family made a public statement that the coroner confirmed it was Mark and that he died by drowning. Coroner told the family that there were no drugs and no alcohol in his system. Whoa. Why does that bother me? Because Mark had been taking pharmaceutical drugs for conditions that he had. So none of those were in his body? Which tells me, in my humble opinion, that he would have had to have been alive for 72 hours for those drugs to work their way out of his system. And then he died. But nobody wants to talk about this, which is a key point. So, a family starts a Kickstarter campaign, and they got $22,000 to pay for his funeral and legal expenses to go through probate, which can be expensive. So, if a person is stable mentally for years, produces YouTube, is a public figure, what's the triggering mechanism for them all of a sudden to become mentally unstable and start hallucinating? This bothers me. There's a lot of weird things in our world. Have you ever heard about the Havana syndrome? Havana syndrome is, there were a group of State Department workers, U.S., that were working in Havana, Cuba. And all of a sudden they started to have strange health effects, bad ringing in the ear, dizziness, some of it like Mark, and it got worse and worse and worse. And several of them got it. And the State Department still hasn't acknowledged why it was occurring, but all of the evidence from private attorneys show some private technology was probably attacking these people. Now, I'm not a conspiracy buff per se, but why suddenly this turn for Mark? And how did he ever get near the dock? Oh, he knew the water was there. He had lived there. He knew the lake was there. So remember, the police stated that he recently developed an altered mental state. what happened. Where was he between 4 and 7 a.m. on March 27th? How did he get in the water? No witnesses saw anything. It wasn't classified as suicide. Again, it's one of those water cases that makes no sense at all. And there's not going to be anything done about this. It's just going to be put in a file, and that'll be the end of it. Oh, you know, he was just wandering along, fell off the dock into the water. That's not the way people die. I'm sorry. That dog don't hunt. So, it bothers the heck out of me that some kind of case like this doesn't get the proper attention. I never heard about it, never saw it before today, and then we started working on it. Next case involves a man named Jason Allen Brice, 52 years old. Pictures of him. Top one, bottom one. Bottom one is his state driver's license for California photo. Top one was submitted by a friend. 52 years old. Last seen January 10th, 2018. Last communicated with January 16th, 2018. Reported missing January 23rd, 2018. He was born and raised in California. He's 5'11", 320 pounds. Graduated from William Hart High School in Santa Clarita, California, north of Los Angeles, right up I-5. He enlisted in the U.S. Army, had a job as an illustrator, and was honorably discharged. Never heard of that job. Illustrator for the U.S. Army. Interesting. If anybody knows, write to me, let me know. Worked in construction and as an illustrator before he joined the Army. And then pursuant to after the Army, he worked in construction a little bit more. He was employed in January 10th, 2018 for the LA Department of Water and Power and had been employed by them for 13 years. Long-term employee. He lived in the mountains north of Santa Clarita, working for the water department in the same general area. Santa Clarita, right here. I-5, the major route north-south between Northern California and Southern Cal. This is it. And he lived just off of Castaic Lake in the middle of nowhere. It gets really hot in that area. In fact, there was a big fire up in there last year or the year before. So he lived in the mountains alone. He was single, not married, no children, no known medical conditions per the police. January 10th, Brice was going on a 4-day vacation that was planned. He was scheduled to be home Sunday, January 14th. January 15th was a federal holiday because that was Martin Luther King's birthday. Tuesday, January 16th, Jason is scheduled to be at work. He called his supervisor. It was never stated what was said on that call, but if he made the call, obviously he was diligent about why he wasn't going to be at work, and obviously he didn't want to get fired, so he calls into work. Apparently, unless he called in and quit, but that isn't what they said. So he doesn't come in. January 23rd, Brice was formally reported as a missing person. Again, he owned a home just east of Castaic Lake, north of Santa Clarita. Home was deep in the mountains, just north of a LA power and water site. Initially, the case went to a missing person unit for the LA sheriffs. Searches were made around the work site and his home and the woods behind the home. In fact, people said that they came in with helicopters, dogs, and they wouldn't, it's a small community, probably 100 people, and they wouldn't tell the people who they were even searching for, which is odd. But they did search. Helicopters, canines, nothing. A week after they're done searching, make things even odder, they change the status of the case from a missing person case and they give it to the homicide unit. The only thing I can say about that is that homicide teams actively work cases. Missing persons teams sometimes have hundreds of missing persons and they go sit in a file until someone wants to pull them out. So maybe they wanted somebody to actively look at the case and get involved. Well, they did do another weekend search. They found nothing again. Essentially, a year after he disappeared, there was no evidence, no updates, no nothing. Sheriff said they got nothing. He was a 13-year employee. He had a really good paying job security for the government. Now, he had no relatives in California. The closest ones were in Utah. But everything about his life centered around where he lived. He had lived there essentially his whole life. Santa Clarita was it. He went to college in Santa Clarita. He went to high school there. And then now he worked just north of there. These are the kind of cases, I'm going to speak up, that drive detectives crazy. No leads, no evidence, nothing. And then, I don't make comments about people's weight too often, but at 5'11", 320 pounds, Jason ain't hiking a long ways in those woods. How far could he actually go? And that would be the question that should be concerning to the searchers. Where could he be? That's $1 million question. And as of right now, he still has not been found. Next case. Case number 3. Yeah, you're getting your money's worth today. It's a case that is in missing 411 off the grid. And it involves a man named Michael Camilletti, 56 years old, missing May 23rd, 2011. He was a retired U.S. Army colonel. He traveled the world teaching special forces, and he lived with his brother in Standardsville, Virginia. This is Michael. Always in good shape, mentally super sharp, and kept himself super sharp and fit. He had attended 2 years at the National War College. His brother stated that he liked to go into the woods and test himself. He said most of the time he wouldn't even tell me where he was going. They lived together, he and his brother. He said, I'll be back in 4 days, but he never said where he went. Now, early in May in 2011, Michael went to Texas. Didn't tell anybody. Didn't bring any food and water, and just wanted to live off the land for 4 days. That's tough. Well, he did. Came back, saw his brother, and then later on took this trip. How many people in the world could do that? Not many. So he retired in the military earlier in the year, earlier in 2011. Like I said, he taught mountain survival skills to the special forces. None better. He had lived in Charleston, West Virginia, Palmyra, Virginia, Columbus, Mississippi, Dothan, Alabama, and Aberdeen, Maryland. He had moved around a lot, but that's the military life. Early in May,
after he came back from Texas, told his brother he was going to take another trip. Brother came home one day, he was gone. He says, it's not abnormal. He said, Michael would just take off and not tell anybody. And then I would know 4 or 5 days later he'd come back. And he always did. Well, on May 23rd, Michael drove from his home to the woods near Marlington, Virginia. Took a backpack, hiking boots. He arrived at this location and he wrote a note in his car. He said, hey, I arrived on this date. I'll be out on that date. May 27th, he said he'd be out. Now, that's not a person that's going to take his life. So get that out of your mind. It's a smart person. As I've told you, you always leave notes or tell people when you're going to come in and when you're going to come out. Now, he was such an expert, he probably never even gave two craps about thinking of not coming out. But I've told you before, you break a leg out there in the middle of nowhere, off trail, good chance you're going to die. Under the circumstances I'm going to tell you, this is how you die in the woods and nobody finds you. So, he doesn't come back. Mark, his brother, doesn't hear from him. 27th, 28th, end of May goes around. Finally, June 12th, he hadn't heard from his brother, so Mark decides to call the West Virginia Highway Patrol. He has no idea where Michael went, but he needs to call somebody and report him missing. So he calls West Virginia Highway Patrol, gives them the license plate number of Michael's car, and says, I have no idea where he's at. He might be around Marlington somewhere, but if you find the car, you're going to find him. I think he's missing. So they report a missing person. That was on June 12th. June 27th. Yeah, 15 days later. State trooper named Mark Agee just happened to be cruising around, finds his car on this remote road, runs the license plate, car comes back associated with a missing person, Michael Camilletti. Trooper goes, whoa, that's odd. So he gets into the car, opens it up, and finds this note. Yeah, I'm supposed to be out May 27th. Well, now it's June 27th. A month after he was supposed to be out. So time out for a second. Let's pretend, I don't care how much of an expert you are, if you're off trail and you break your tibia, fibula, femur, you are going to die right there. Why? Because it hurts like you will not believe. I've never experienced more pain. It was horrendous. When I broke mine, I told myself, I'm not moving. I can't move anywhere. So, I'm not sure what happened, but a month later, the trooper finds the car. Trooper calls for search and rescue. So on June 28th, multiple two-man rescue teams are going into the Monongahela National Forest on a place called the North-South Trail to search for Michael. So this is Marlington, Virginia. He's parked off of Williams River Road, right in this area of the middle of the woods. This is the National Forest, all this. And this is remote, folks. If you want to get away from people, this is the place. There's a lot of weird, wild stuff in those woods out there, let me tell you. I've heard of a lot of them. I wouldn't want to be out there alone, trust me. Even if I had big firearms, I wouldn't want to be out there alone. So they send in multiple teams. Initially, they find nothing. Then the Department of Homeland Security sends in multiple cadaver dogs to search. It's been a month. But then his brother made up a good point. He said, hey, if there was anybody that could survive a month out there be my brother. So the next day, June 30th, they sent in tracking dogs to track from the car in. So they had all their bases covered. That was smart. One thing that Michael liked to do was spelunking, caving. And there are caves out there. And the searchers found some and searched them, didn't find him. But if you're inside a cave, deep inside a cave, and you broke your leg, well, you're in real poo-poo. Real bad trouble. Horrific trouble. Because then, even a personal locator beacon wouldn't work. Yeah. So, they sent in tracking dogs, cadaver dogs, nothing. The elevation in this area is from 2,400 feet to 4,450 feet. The initial 4-day search and rescue, they got nothing. Second weekend edition, found nothing. Weeks later, after the search and rescue was even over, some people expected that Michael would just walk out. He didn't. After 7 years, which is the standard, he's declared deceased. I find this very interesting case because he retired that year. And then he's only been retired a few months, and bam, he disappears. Now, why do I find that unusual? There's a lot of rumors that go around the world that these higher echelon soldiers that retire, that they go missing, are picked up and they're put in special covert detail teams. Like there's supposed to be a space team, etc. And I find this one unusual just because they found zip. And because this guy was so well trained, so advanced, so smart, super healthy. Reminds me of a case out of Olympic National Park where there was a man that worked for the Washington State Retirement System. And he went to a trailhead, not dressed for being on the trail. And he took off on a hike, never found. Spoke seven languages, had a Bronze Star in the military. And there was rumors that, yeah, he was put into a special team and taken out because they never found anything on him either. Now those are all rumors, and I don't like rumors, but I want to give you all the opportunity to think this one through as I have many nights. But when canines can't find anything, cadaver dogs don't find zip. Now remember, cadaver dogs can smell a dead body miles away. And they didn't. So, thank you for being here. I appreciate you immensely. So does Huck. And if Huck is bothering you, or my introduction to her is bothering you, or as somebody said, hey, you know, I've seen too much of your dog, don't bring Huck on anymore, it's stupid. If my 90 seconds at the beginning of the video bothers you in some way, I'm sorry. But I have hundreds of notes from people saying, oh, Dave, the dog's beautiful, bring him on. Don't listen to those fools out there. Keep bringing Huck back. My dog barks when Huck barks. That was a good one. And so, one thing you learn, I can't please everybody. I try, but you just can't. And there's going to be happy people in this world, and there's going to be angry people. So, I'll just try to play to the majority. And stay happy. Stay healthy, find your way in life, go back to school, pick up a trade, be a plumber, be an electrician. There's a lot of opportunity in this world for people who want to work. Too many young people out there aren't working. We need to get to work. Work breeds happiness. You produced a product, you'll be happy. Remember, kindness, it's everywhere. You just have to find it. And if you can't find it, you exude that yourself. Be safe, be happy. Paulides out.